Okay, you've probably noticed the aurora, or seen photos of the aurora being awfully low recently, all the way down to Arizona, according to some accounts I've heard. And I'm going to be explaining the three big solar events and kind of what's been causing all of this mayhem. As you can see, I have a view of the sun. I'm going to explain it real quick. This is basically a coronagraph. It is a view of all the stuff the sun is shooting out. We have our big one and our small one. Small one's red, big one's blue. Then if we zoom in here, we have our solar ultraviolet imager, which is basically a fancy photo taker of the sun. And this, you can see active regions. This is where a lot of the stuff has been coming out. You can see just kind of where the sun's going crazy. It's a nice little picture of the sun. Now, the first event we're going to talk about is solar flares, because there's been a lot of crazy solar flares occurring. And let's just take a look. As you can see, nope, there was one, we missed it. See, it's a solar flare. I do not believe these are accurate to where the solar flares occurred, but they're just saying a solar flare occurred. I believe it occurred around there. See, kind of shoots off. Let's wait till another one. I think there's a good example. Oh. Flare. Kind of see it. Anyways, what a flare is shooting out a bunch of electromagnetic radiation. This radiation will maybe come in contact with Earth if it is shot out at Earth, cause radio blackouts, and there's not much to worry about. It's just explosion of radiation from the sun in a giant burst, like a strike of lightning, let's say. It shoots it at Earth, hurts some radios, whatever. And we've been having some large ones. If we look back over here, this is an X9.0, which is not strong, but moderate, I believe. Here, let me check. No, it's considered strong. It's just not severe or extreme. And this has kind of been coming as consequence with all the stuff that's been happening. Next thing that's been happening in the actual cause of the aurora and why it's so low is coronal mass ejections. Let's just let this play out. You can see them. It's all these giant things getting shot out from the sun. What are these things? Glad I asked. It's particles from the sun's outer corona, the outer layer of the sun. It's shooting off all this plasma, all these electrons, all this just space stuff. And this is going to hit Earth. It's going to hit its magnetic sphere. It can damage electrical infrastructure, normally in the poles. I believe there's an instance of it damaging electrical infrastructure in Sweden. And then it's just an explosion of the sun's outer layer. And when it hits Earth, it occurs something called a geomagnetic storm, which just damages some radio, electrical infrastructure, can impact spacecraft, all that. And it also causes the aurora, because there's electrons. The electrons hit Earth, get moved by the magnetic sphere up to the North Pole, south to the South Pole, and then they interact with oxygen, nitrogen, the air, which causes them to get energized. And then, of course, when an electron becomes unenergized, it releases photons. Photons are light. Light is the aurora, and it's the cause of the aurora. And then the last thing that we have here, let's look at the nice and pretty geomagnetic storm some more. You can see them shooting off. It's boom, boom, boom. See, it starts going kind of crazy. Now, as you can see, there's our last little thing. We're all hell broke loose. That's the solar radiation storm. And what's going on here is kind of an explosion of the sun's magnetic sphere. And what you're actually seeing is energized photons. That's what all these little bugs on the screen are. Sun shooting out all these, energized photons. It's shooting out all this, I believe, X-ray radiation. Here, let me double check this. I have this all pulled up. It's shooting out charged particles, radiation, and this can be dangerous to electronic circuits. If it's shooting out all this energized stuff, it can damage spacecraft because they have electronics in them. Who would have figured? And if you're walking your dog right here, let's say, in space, your DNA like literally your DNA, it's gonna get quite damaged. It's not good for you. No radiation is that good for you. Fun fact. Anyways, that's basically it. 3 things have been occurring. Giant solar flares, which is shooting radiation, causing radio blackouts, normally near the poles. Geomagnetic storms, which is actually the cause of the aurora, because we've had some massive G5, G4 geomagnetic storms, which is shooting all this corona out, causing electrons to go, get energized, let off this light, which is the aurora. And then we've had, of course, the solar radiation storm, which is caused from a giant magnetic explosion of the sun's magnetic sphere, causing all this little fun radiation and energized protons, what have you, going about. And that basically summarizes the 3 main events that have been occurring recently and why the aurora. So, yep.